public funeral and 7 days of mourning. Obituaries in the English-speaking world have portrayed him as both a socialist showman who transformed Venezuela and a narcissistic ruler who was reckless with his country's economy and its democracy.
So who was this man and what does his death mean for politics, not just in Venezuela, but right across the Latin American region? Jim McIlroy has met Hugo Chavez. He's also a member of the Australia Venezuela Solidarity Network. He joins us now from Sydney. Jim McIlroy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Tell us about Hugo Chavez.
In my opinion, Hugo Chavez was the most important political leader of the first part of the 21st century. He transformed he has begun the process of transforming Venezuela and at the same time Latin America as a whole, because his legacy is the challenge to the capitalist neoliberalization which is dominating the world today, and in particular Latin America. And I believe that what will come from his legacy is actually a turning of the tide as far as the situation of colonialism and the domination of neoliberalism in Latin America.
Okay.
And I believe it has a worldwide impact as well.
When you talk about colonialism and neoliberalism, who are you talking about?
Well, of course, the United States has regarded Latin America as its backyard for 2 centuries, ever since the collapse of the Spanish Empire, which dominated for 500 years. And the people of Latin America have been struggling ever since to overcome that legacy of colonialism. And Hugo Chavez challenged the US, and Venezuela today stands as an independent country, a country standing on its own feet and developing more and more links with other areas of Latin America. Chavez was modelled himself or took as his inspiration Simón Bolivar, the great liberator of Latin America against the Spanish Empire, and he believed that he was carrying forward that dream for a united Latin America. Yeah,
but he's left the economy in a basket case there. It is a basket case. In the last decade, Venezuela is the worst performer in GDP per capita within Latin America. It's not exactly a great performance.
No, those figures are not correct. They're challenged.
They're figures from Harvard University, Jim McIlroy.
Yes, but there's also figures from the Centre for Independent Studies in the United States, which shows that, for example...
Explain, what's the Centre for Independent Studies?
Well, Mark Weisbrod is one of the writers there, and his writings can be seen on the website Venezuela Analysis. But if we look at the overall situation of Venezuela, the debt to GDP in Venezuela is massively less than the United States. It's something like 15%. The inflation is a problem, but unemployment is something like 6%. Over the last period of 12 years of Chavez's presidency, poverty has been halved in Venezuela, and severe poverty, according to figures from the United Nations, has been reduced by 72%. This is an incredible transformation. The way in which it's been presented in the West is an actual travesty. I have seen what is happening in Venezuela. I've seen the feeling of the people for Chavez, that he has transformed their lives.
You've seen the crumbling infrastructure, the impact of unsustainable public spending as well, which again these well-respected studies cite. I also want to put to you that Venezuela is the 5th largest oil exporter in the world, Jim McIlroy. Obviously swimming in oil cash. We've all seen the oil price in recent years. Why isn't the economy much better than it is at the moment? Where has all that oil money gone?
That oil money has gone into the improving the lives of the people. In Venezuela, you have free public health. Prior to Chavez coming to power, there was no public health available to the mass of the people. You have free education up to tertiary level. I've seen this, the Bolivarian university system. You have the social missions, which are organisations of the people carrying out all sorts of social welfare programs. The life of the people in Venezuela has been massively improved.
You get free education and free public health in Cuba. I have spent some time in Cuba, and you see an awful amount of poverty, you see an awful amount of crumbling infrastructure, and an awful amount of unhappy people.
Well, you see a lot of... I've also been to Cuba several times, and In fact, of course, Cuba has suffered from a 50-year criminal blockade by the United States, which is supported by only 5 out of a couple of hundred votes in the United Nations. They have had enormous difficulties because of that blockade, and that's why they have poverty. And of course, the point is Cuba doesn't have oil. Venezuela has oil, but what Chavez has succeeded in doing, or as I believe the Venezuelan government is on the way to doing, is diversifying the Venezuelan economy. When he inherited the economy in 1998, it was totally an oil-based economy. Now they are reviving agriculture. There was no agriculture in Venezuela when he came to power. Now they're starting to build the idea of food security. They're also starting to redevelop Venezuelan industry. So the reality of the Venezuelan economy as far as it affects the people is completely different to what we've seen reported in the West.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Jim McIlroy, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
To finance, Britain's Prime Minister David